Well, welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. As you know, our special guest today is Christine Schreiner-Bergener, the Secretary General's Special Envoy for Myanmar. I will give Christine the floor first for some opening comments. She will take a few questions, and then we'll have our regular lineup of briefings from myself, followed by Brendan. So, Christine, you're joining us from Bern in Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen that backdrop in a number of TV interviews already for the last couple of days. So we're happy you could join us here with our media crew from New York. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Good afternoon. Maybe you are a little bit surprised that you see me only now after almost 3 years in my mandate as the Special Envoy of Myanmar. But clearly from the beginning, I choose a strategy as a facilitator to be a little bit silent in the public, to keep all channels open. And thanks to them, I have today all the contacts and still I have also connections to the Tamado, to the army. But clearly now, after the coup, I cannot be silent in the public and I have to be very vocal, as you heard from my briefing at the General Assembly last Friday. Since then, we saw shocking news, especially today. Today, it was the bloodiest day since the coup happened on the 1st of February. We had only today, 38 people died. We have now more than over 50 people died since the coup started, and many are wounded. I receive around 2,000 messages per day from the people in Myanmar. And I also try to answer some questions from the people on the ground who are really desperate to see action from the international community. I saw today very disturbing video clips. One was a police beating a volunteer medical crew. They were not armed. Another video clip showed a protester was taken away from police and they shot him from very near, maybe only 1 meter. He didn't resist to his arrest and it seems that he died on the street. From the video clips, I asked some weapons experts and they could verify to me, it's not clear that but it seems that the police used weapons like 9mm submachine guns, so live ammunitions. Altogether, we have around 1,200 people are now detained, and many families don't know where their members of the families are detained, if they are healthy or not. So how can we watch this situation longer? I personally stay every day in contact with the CRPH, which is a committee representing the parliamentarians elected at the 8th November election. And I'm in contact with all the stakeholders in the region, also with member states of the ASEAN, who had yesterday a foreign minister meeting. Last week, I also joined a video meeting with around 200 people around Myanmar from different regions to listen to them, to listen to the worries, how the situation is on the ground. I did this always in the last 3 years. If I couldn't travel, then last year with the COVID pandemic, I made these video calls, especially in Rakhine, but this time it was all over the country. Clearly, I know so many people from my several visits I had in Myanmar, and I stayed before the COVID pandemic more in Myanmar than in Switzerland or New York. So the Secretary General strongly condemned the coup, and he urged that violence must stop and the situation must be reset. So every tools available are needed now to stop this situation, and that we need now a unity of the international community. So it's up to the member states to take the right measures. This Friday, I will have another briefing of the Security Council. It will be a closed consultation. And clearly, I hope still that I can visit Myanmar as quickly as possible. I don't have the solution on the silver plate, but I have some ideas which I would like to discuss with the army, but with all the stakeholders, with the CRPH, and to visit Aung San Suu Kyi and the president and others. So I will keep going on. We will not give up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Edie Lederer.
Thank you very much, Madam Schreiner-Bergner. Edith Lederer from the Associated Press on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. Thank you very much for doing this briefing, and we hope you'll come back and do this more often. I have one follow-up question. Have you had any contacts at all in recent days with any senior military officials? But my main question is, we have seen thousands of words from top international figures from all over the world demanding an end to the coup and a restoration of democracy. But what we've seen on the ground is what you have described today. So what is it that that you think the international community can or should do to actually try and reverse the coup? Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Shall I answer now?
Yes, please go ahead, Christine. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So we know that several countries already took bilaterally sanctions, but it's clearly up to the member states to decide what kind of measures they will take further. And we know I had discussion with the army, and I warned them that member states and Security Council might take huge, strong measures. And the answer was, we are used to sanctions, and we survived those sanction time in the past. When I also warned they will go in an isolation, the answer was, we have to learn to walk with only few friends. So I think we have really the member states have to take very strong measures. But my role will be also to continue the dialogue also with the army, because I think we can only stop this in a dialogue. If not, we know that in the past, the army had always a textbook and was always determined to go the roadmap they choose, unfortunately.
Thank you. James?
James Bays from Al Jazeera. You'll be aware of the dispute over diplomatic recognition here in New York. Now it seems that the deputy permanent representative has quit his job after being named as the acting ambassador. With regard to this, you were you were remotely in the GA when we heard the ambassador giving that impassioned speech. Can I ask you what your feelings were, because you obviously have known the ambassador for a long time, when you heard that speech? And much as it was very powerful, do you think it potentially complicates your efforts in that the generals may not want to deal with the UN at all now?
Well, as you said, I'm in contact with Jo Mo-tun almost now 3 years, and he got really a close friend of mine. And we kept this contact also now since the coup in a daily basis. So I knew that he will make this speech, and I congratulated him to his courage. It's really not easy, because when we both knew that we have to speak at the General Assembly, we know that it can have effects for him personally, especially also for his family in Myanmar, and for me as the role as a facilitator to not lose the contact to Tamadol. I hope it will not happen. I had the last contact with the Deputy Commander-in-Chief was on the 15th of February. Since then, I'm in contact by writing, and it was on Sunday I sent a long letter directly to him, to the number 2. And since then I didn't hear directly to me an answer, but they sending me every day some information. So I try to keep this contact, and clearly it's sad also for the PR, but I really commend his courage and yeah, his strengths.
Thank you. Toby, NHK, Japanese television.
Hello, Special Envoy Toby Burns with NHK Japan. I have 2 questions. One is, can you tell us specifically about your contacts in CRPH and who you're speaking with, and what the nature of your conversations are there? And second is a more qualitative question about what is in the mindset of the Tatmadaw right now? What is the military thinking about their actions? Is it just a bold-faced, rejection of or denial of the international calls, or is it willful ignorance, or is there some feeling of legitimacy there? Put us in the mind, as far as you can, of how the military is actually thinking about their actions as best you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With the CRPH, I'm from the beginning in contact. I think I can't say with whom, because she made it also public that she is now the foreign minister. So with her, I'm in daily contact. About the army, I think they had, or not I think, I know that they have a road map. So Win, the number 2 of the army, explained me on my first phone call on the 4th of February that the State Administrative Council, which was established, has now the role to implement the roadmap with 5 steps. So the first step is to reconstitute the Union Election Commission, which already happened. The second is the prevention of COVID, which didn't happen yet, and it's I have really to underline it's a disaster now with the COVID prevention. They don't have any tests, they don't have any vaccination. So this is also an effect which will hit not only Myanmar but also the region. The third point of the roadmap is to recover the business. The fourth is to restore peace and to have a national ceasefire agreement with all 21 ethnic armed organizations. But this also, the fourth point, will be very difficult for the army, because the 10 already members of the national ceasefire agreement made a strong statement against the coup, and they said that they will use also violence if the army attacks civilians, especially in their region or where the ethnic armed organizations are situated. The fifth point is the elections. So he's told me that after a year they want to have another election, but clearly, in my view, the tactic was now to investigate NLD people, to put them in prison, and at the end that they can prove that they made crimes like election fraud, like treason, to work with foreigners. and so on. And at the end, the NLD will be banned, and then they have a new election where they want to win, and then that they can continue to be in power. So this is, in my view, a clear textbook, which doesn't work now. And I think that the army is very surprised that it doesn't work, because in the past, 1988 and 2007 and 8, it worked. But today we have young people who lived in freedom for 10 years. They have social media, and they are well organized and very determined. They don't want to go back in a dictatorship and in isolation. So I think the army is surprised, and maybe we have to help them to come out of this situation.
Thank you. We'll go to Michelle Nichols at Reuters.
Thank you, Special Envoy, for this briefing. A couple of follow-ups on some stuff you've said. Can you just clarify for us, the army has actually said to you that they plan to hold the elections in 1 year's time? I don't believe they've given us publicly any kind of time frame for when they plan to hold these new elections. And just from what you've said about how they seem fairly prepared to put up with new sanctions and isolation, are you getting the sense that they're willing to sort of knuckle down and do this for a while? And also, have they tried to put any conditions on a visit for you? I know you said they've asked you to postpone a visit, but have they put any sort of conditions on you visiting at some point? Thanks.
Thank you. So the election, so Wynne told me they will hold the election in 1 year. He said that it's due to the constitution. We talked to also constitutional experts, and they said it doesn't have to be 1 year. But clearly, I think that was the real plan of the army. You asked if they could be for long for an isolation, and I think they were used in the past to be in isolation. But I assume that that was not the plan. The army had probably the plan to threaten the people, to make arrests, and then the majority of the people will go home because they have fear, and then they have the control back again, and then they can people will be they will be used to the situation, and with the people or the countries who are making business with them, that they will go back to the business as usual. But this is now not the case, because we saw also in the Security Council briefing I gave on the 2nd of February, there was a statement which was signed by all member states of the Security Council. And also the ASEAN countries are quite unified in having concerns of the situation. So probably the army have to think about another strategy. About my visit, I made a condition that I would like to see Aung San Suu Kyi, the president, and others, because it makes also no sense if I only see the Tamado, because I have to have a dialogue and also want to see if they are safe. When I asked, because they said, not yet, you can come and you are always welcome, you are a friend of Myanmar, I have a visa, I have an office in Napido, but they said not yet. When I asked what does it mean, not yet, they said we have to make two things before you are coming. One is to continue the investigations on the electoral fraud, also on the foundation of Do Su's mother, how the money was used from this foundation. The second is that they want to stop the movement of disobedience. And then he said, I can come. So I said, no, I have to come immediately. And I asked if it would change if I wouldn't have any condition. But he said, no, it's not about your conditions, it's about the timing. So I will continue to push that the time is running and it's not too late. I said also on Sunday to the Tamado to speak together.
Thank you. Ibtisam Azam from Al Arabi. Ibtisam?
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the briefing. I have a few follow-ups. So, have you been in touch with any Chinese officials or any officials from the region, and which reactions are you having there? And then also on when you talk about strong measures, could you please be more specific? And I don't know if you can answer that question, but what do you think about why now? Why the army was already in control of a lot of very key positions in the country and parliament, etc. So if you could go a little bit more into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, with China, I'm in regular contact already now 3 years. And also since the coup, but also 2 days before the coup happened, because I was quite alerted before the coup happened, and I had many phone calls. But until Sunday, before the coup happened on Monday, I was not sure that the coup happened because they were still in a dialogue, the Tamado with the government. But with China, I'm in contact, but clearly with many member states of ASEAN, especially with the foreign minister of Indonesia, Singapore. But before COVID, I visited also Malaysia, Thailand. So I continue to have these contacts very intensively. About strong measures, I think it's really up to the member states. Some countries like US, Australia, Canada, UK and EU already made bilaterally sanctions. Germany and New Zealand suspended their aid. Maybe the Security Council decide on a common measure, and that would be much more powerful than certain single states. And clearly the ASEAN meeting yesterday, they said that they are very concerned about the situation because it can really affect the stability of the region by violence, but also with refugee influx, but also about COVID. So the region is very worried. Your last question was about
why now, despite the fact that the army is.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are speculations why the coup happened now. In my almost last 3 years, I always warned member states or the Security Council, even in the General Assembly, that a coup can happen because I knew the structure of the country, that the army had the real power. And it was so difficult for Aung San Suu Kyi to make any reforms happen. So she wanted to have 168 items of the constitution be changed. And especially the most important one is which gives 25% of the seats to the army. And also 3 major ministries are under the control of the army. And we maybe many people don't know that the police is under the control of the army. So she could only make 4 out of 168 items to reform in the constitutions in the last 5 years. So it was always difficult. And in my bilateral discussions with her, I always felt that she was on a tightrope with dealing with the army. And I really can assure you that she wanted to make this country happen, that it's a federal democracy. But why the moment after the election? I think it's also because the NLD won more than 82% of the seats. And when I talked with Aung San Suu Kyi before the election, we agreed that I will support her to implement many reforms after the election. And I remember she said, yes, we will do this. Together, we will implement so many things. So I think he was really, the commander-in-chief was a little bit afraid of that she will have more success with this overwhelming victory in the election. But we also know that the commander-in-chief, he should take his retirement in June this year. And maybe he was also worried about his immunity, because we know that there are legal procedures at the ICJ and ICC. But at the end, my opinion is it was definitely about power, and because they had the real power and they don't want to lose this power.
Thank you. Benno from German press agency, DPA. Benno.
Thank you so much for doing this briefing. In fact, my questions were asked partly, so if there's an overlap, sorry for this. Are you in contact with US and European representatives right now? And what do you expect from the United States and European countries? Moreover, on Friday, there's a new Security Council meeting. What would be your ideal outcome of that?
Okay, guten Tag. Yes, I'm in regular contact with Brussels, and I also, before COVID, I went to Brussels several times to discuss with the director of Asia, but also to give briefings to the COREPER, to have contact with many ambassadors there, but also with the trade section about the sanctions. And the last call I had around 10 days ago, and they also member states of the EU calling me bilaterally, especially also Berlin. And yes, I think they will really, they keep now those sanction measures. And we will see if on Friday, if we have in the Security Council also a unity, but we know also that China and Russia made already a statement on the 2nd of February together with the other member states. But I'm very curious myself if how the unity will go on. I hope so.
Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Gerne.
Lenka White, Mainichi Newspapers. Lenka.
Thank you very much for the briefing. My question is, do you have any information on what is the situation with the Rohingya people? Do you think it can get worse in the nearest future? And if so, where do you get the information from whom? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in the beginning, when I talked to the Deputy Commander-in-Chief, in the first meeting, I also asked about the plans they have beside the roadmap, and I mentioned the Rohingya issue, and I asked if they continue to stay in power, if they would like to implement the MOU with Bangladesh, UNHCR and UNDP, if they want to make the conditions conducive in Rakhine, if they want to bring them back, and if they would like to give them all the rights back. He said, absolutely. They want to continue what the last government started to do. I asked also, like, do you want to implement the strategy on the closure of IDP camps? And he also said, absolutely. I asked him about accountability. I said, will you also preserve evidences as requested from the ICJ? And he also said, absolutely. But now I'm a little bit, not a little bit, but I'm worried because a few days ago, I heard that the this council, which was established, so the State Administrative Council, said that they will start investigations to conduct, or they conduct investigations into the work of Kofi Annan's report, and action will be taken on the work done, and I quote, in the self-interest of an individual without taking national interests into consideration. So that is probably really directed to Aung San Suu Kyi, who ordered this Kofi Annan report and accepted the recommendations, the 88 recommendations of Kofi Annan's commission. So if they want to investigate this work, and also they said they will do the same with the work on the Independent Commission of Inquiry, the ICOE, which said that war crimes might happen, then I really fear that they will go back to square one with the treatment of the Rohingya. So this will be my question also to the Tamado in my next discussion with them.
Great, thank you. We have time, unfortunately, for one more. Sherwin Bryce Peace, South Africa Broadcasting. Sherwin.
Thanks, Steph, and thank you for this briefing, Special Envoy. You mentioned that you'll be in the Security Council on Friday, where Russia and China will be in the room. They've made it clear that the coup and developments in Myanmar is an internal matter, and that the rest of the international community should respect Myanmar's sovereignty. I wonder what you make of that argument in particular, given the consensus you seek in terms of action from the Council. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that they recognize that it's not only it's not an internal affair. It hits the stability of the region because if we know that the ethnic armed organizations are determined not to allow this coup continue, and they also said that they suspend the dialogue with the Tamado, then and if both sides will start to use violence, then we have a situation of a real war in Myanmar, which is in nobody's interest, not for the people, but in Myanmar, but also not for the region. So I hope that China will realize that it will be important to work together, but also for Russia. So I really hope that this unity will be upheld on Friday.
Great. Special Envoy, thank you very much for your time. I know you have to go, unfortunately, but we hope now that you've met our friends here in New York, you will come back and brief us often. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to meet you face to face. Thank you very much.
Thank you.